So today project 3 is due, and you're gonna be assigned exercise 6, the last exercise, and no more exercises after that. Woohoo! So graduating from exercises, and then after that it's just 2 more projects, project 4 and 5, and then we're done. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Files, because this is where I'd like you to go, is to go to Files and download the whole exercise 6 folder. So you hover over exercise 6 and you click the ... click download, so that you have all the materials provided for this exercise, which I include a bunch of photographs to do some simple tasks on, to learn some new skills, to wrap up your skills learning in Photoshop. Okay, well, not exactly wrap up, but wrap up what we're learning in purely photo editing and photo manipulating. Because after this week, we're going to move into more design and vector work in Photoshop. Okay, so that's downloaded. And I'm gonna put that, I'm gonna get it from downloads. Comes in as a zip file, so I double click to extract the zip file, and there it is, the exercise 6 folder, and in it has a folder with 12 images and some other items. Let me just put that folder, I'm gonna make a new Finder window, put that on in my folder for the class. My teaching folder and my Tuesday, Thursday folder, and just adding it to my folder for this class. Just like that. Oops, except I don't want it here, so I'll throw it in the trash. Throw this in the trash. Housekeeping. Okay, so now I have just the exercise 6 folder here. So what's in the exercise 6 folder? You'll find a folder inside of that with 12 images to work on. And don't worry, it goes by fast. It's a lot faster than exercise 3 was, even though there's a lot more images here. Let's look at the assignment. It's called Ex6 assignment. I'm going to open that up. So it opens up in Acrobat. And then also in this folder, you have 2 images that you can work on for extra credit. So each image is worth an additional 5 points of extra credit. So I'll be going over how you get the extra credit after I go over how you get the regular credit for the assignment. So let's take a look at the assignment. So this exercise I call the Extreme Image Makeovers exercise. So you want to just copy the 12 images like I just did. Disregard class files. This is the terminology we used to use in the in-person class. I forgot to take that out. I apologize for that. So just this part of it is just download your exercise 6 folder from Canvas, put it on your hard drive so you can work with it. Then you're going to open each of the 12 images and follow these simple instructions on the images. I'm going to be talking about the alternative way to edit each image using a non-destructive edit. And then the simple instructions here, I'm only telling you where to go to do the destructive edit, but I'm also going to demonstrate the non-destructive method so you can learn both ways and you can try out both ways. Some of them don't have the option for non-destructive editing. Some of them do. This first one does not. The car color replace image. I'm just going to go in order of the image. So I'm going to go in order the order that's on the assignment. So I'm going to jump into Photoshop and then open each image as it appears in the assignment. So I'm going to go File, Open from Photoshop or Command O and go to the folder. Which is in the Exercise 6 folder in the 12 images folder. And the first image is called Car Color Replace here. I'm going to click Open. And what are we doing for this one? The goal is to change the color of the car and make it look realistically like it is a different car color than red. You know, those red cars, they're always the ones that the cops go after first and give all the tickets to. So as beautiful as the red car is, this is our chance to change the color of the red car. So how do we do that? Well, the assignment tells you where to go. So you go to Image, Adjustments, and you find Replace Color. Image, Adjustments, Replace Color down here. So this is one of the adjustments that you will not find as a non-destructive method, but a lot of these you will find as a non-destructive edit. So we'll be looking at that with the non-destructive editing button here. It looks like a half-eaten pizza. And notice when you click on that from the layer panel, you'll find a lot of the same adjustments that you find under Image, Adjustments. And then these are all the destructive adjustments. And down here within the layers panel, you can bring them up as a non-destructive adjustment that will be on an adjustment layer. So we're going to look at both ways, but color replace or replace color is not in this list. So we just go to Image and Adjustments to get it, replace color. But it's going to replace color by selecting a color. And since the tail lights are the same color as the car, you might want to mask out the tail lights first so that they don't get selected. Now, I don't mind if you change the tail lights for the assignment. If you just like make the whole, if you're changing the car green, for example, and then that will mean the tail lights turn green too, or whatever color you choose, the tail lights will change too. I don't mind, but I know some people that's going to look strange. So if you want it to look even more realistic, the goal is to select everything in the image except for the taillights. So we can mask them. How do we mask them? Does anyone know what type of masking would be good for this? If we just want to select everything in the image except for the taillights, because those are so red that they will change too with this effect. Because this adjustment is based on selecting red pixels and then changing those red pixels. Everything else in the image is not going to be too red, so we don't have to worry about it, but the taillights. So what should we do? What do you think we should do to not change the tail lights?
Lasso tool?
Lasso tool, but that will be a little difficult. Let's find an easier way. I mean, you could use the lasso and draw around and then you're selecting the tail light, so then you would do what? You inverse select. Yeah, that's a good method, but I'm going to go with going to quick mask mode. So let me just check my settings in quick mask mode. I'm going to double click on it. Because what I'm masking is red, I'm going to change my color of my masked area to a different color than red. So probably green would be good. So I'm just going to choose green and okay. And now I'm going to take my brush, bring up my opacity, and I might want to change the hardness of the brush. Well, I guess it could be a little soft, that's fine. And then I can just paint over. Oops, am I painting the... Oops, you know what? I forgot. I don't think I'm in... Am I in quick mask mode? Let me see. Let me switch to standard mode. Nope, I wasn't in quick mask mode, so I painted paint on my car. Oops. Here, let me undo that. Command Z a few times. Now I want to go to quick mask mode. So now I clicked to go to quick mask mode. Now I'm in quick mask mode. So now when I paint, it's painting on green transparent mask. It's not paint. It's not painting paint pixels on the car. It's just a method of selecting. It might be even easier if I change my brush to change the roundness of my brush in this situation and rotate it to be more oval to fit the angle here and here. So I'm just roughly protecting these areas, and if I mess up I can always erase a little bit off the edge. Oops, that's a soft eraser. Let me bring the hardness up on the eraser. Erase. Oh, and the eraser's opacity's down. And just one more little brush there. Okay, so now I've masked the taillights. So now that they're masked, I want to go back to standard mode by clicking on the mask button to get back to edit in standard mode. So now this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to select everything except for the taillights, because that's, by definition, that's what masking is. Masking the area that you do not want to select. Okay, so now we're ready. So we can go to image adjustments and then replace color. Okay, so this works by using the droppers to select. You could check localized color clusters to see if that is more effective or less effective. I'm going to choose eyedropper tool and I'm just going to click, and you can adjust the fuzziness, and then if I want to add to the selection I can click the add dropper and click to add more. Actually, let me uncheck localized color clusters and try adding more. Maybe I need to increase the fuzziness. And it used to really do a good job in the old days of fleshing out the car and leaving everything else black, but those days are no longer. So just do your best to click with the add dropper until, click on different reds that you see in the car, enough that most of the car starts to get filled out. And don't worry too much if pixels in the ground get selected. It's not gonna make that much of a difference. It's gonna turn out well in the end. So you just want to add in places, and then when you see that the car's fleshed out and lit up enough, then you can use these sliders down here, hue, saturation, and lightness, to start to change the color of the pixels, the red pixels that are selected, and whatever other pixels are selected. Every pixel, this representation here is showing what pixels in the image are selected. So I'm not sure why it makes it so spread out. but it's okay. It will not affect the rest of the image too much. So I'm just going to start with hue, because hue will actually, it allows you to choose different colors along the spectrum. So I can drag along the hue slider, and now I'm going into magenta on my car, going into purple, blue. What's your favorite car color? Someone shout out a color that they want to see us turn this car. Getting to a, what was that, green? Did you say green? Yeah, so that here might be a green, or maybe all the way over here on this side of the spectrum. So then once you start changing the hue, you'll start to see where we still need to add to the selection. So you'll see little bits and pieces of red. So you use your add dropper and you can click right on those little bits and pieces. Then you know where to target there. Click and click where the little messy parts are. You might even zoom in and try clicking right like on the edge there to clean that up. Unfortunately, the reflections are kind of dangerous, but you could try clicking in the reflection. I think it's okay. It's working. So there's a green colored car there. And so you can alter, you know, the type of green that you want along the hue slider. And then you can change the saturation. So what saturation? If you go to the left, you dull down, you desaturate. So now I have a gray car, no color. And then I go to the right and I'm amplifying the saturation, making like a neon green. So you can choose what level of saturation you want. And then lightness. So if I drag to the left, I'm darkening so I can get a really nice dark forest green color. Or I can go up lighter and make a really pale green color. I could even switch my hue slider back to more like a red hue. And hey, I've got Barbie's dream car. I think I had a car like that when I was a little girl. But let's stick with, ooh, now it's like a yellow, pale yellow. Let's go back to green. And then adjust the green, lightness, saturation. Maybe I want this color green. Okay, so I'll go with that and then I'll say okay. And then we can deselect, Command D to deselect. And then you just, I would recommend you save each of these as PDFs, because I'd like you to combine this as one PDF to turn in the end. So after you do the work, you can do a file save as and save to a location where you want to save your finished files. Let's see, I'll just go into my folder for the class. And well, I'll just be in exercise 6 and I'll make a new folder and I'll call it finished files or something. Create, and then I'll just make this, name this, or I'll just change the format to Photoshop PDF and save there. Save. And it's saying the settings you chose in the Save Adobe PDF can override your current settings in the Save As dialog box. Okay, that's fine. I'll say okay. And doesn't really matter if it doesn't have to be super high quality. Could be press quality. Let's try press quality. Save PDF. Okay. And then and then I'll just close this. Or you could save a Photoshop version if you want, or if I just click save and say, I'm just gonna close this though, and not save. So I should have my finished file with my PDF version that's my finished work. Okay, so next one on the list, this one's called Weight Shift. This is where you get to use a fun filter called Liquify. So I'm going to open from my 12 images, the image called Weight Shift. Open. Okay. So the goal of this one is to make one of these characters lose some weight and one gain some weight. But I'd also just like you to explore the filter and see what it does and try out different tools and just have fun with it. You don't have to be too hard on yourself to make it look super realistic, but just be aware that this is what they do in the magazines and the tabloids with tools like this. And try it out. See if you can get the technique down. Okay, so we're gonna do this by going to Filter and then going to Liquify, and then it will take the image into the Liquify Filter dialog box. So first thing to do is just kind of play with the different tools, see what things do. So this first tool here, it looks like a finger. It's the forward warp tool. You can use it by just kind of dragging things around. You can really swirl the image. It's pretty amazing how much you can transform the photograph and just play with it and turn it into liquid silk and turn it into something completely different. I don't mind if you turn in something that looks completely different like this for this assignment, really. So it's very flexible, this filter, because you have the ability to reconstruct everything so easily. So there, down here in this menu, there's a section called like brush reconstruction options. So you can click on reconstruct and it'll give you a reconstruction slider that you can slide back to the way things were all the way if you want, or not. I'll just go to that point. Or you can just click on the restore all button that does it with one click. It takes it back. Okay. So that was the forward warp tool, and then we reconstructed everything. What else do we have here? Reconstruct tool. So you use forward warp and you swirl something around, and then you take your reconstruct tool and you can paint you can reconstruct just over areas that you paint on with the reconstruct tool. Or just click restore all to do it in one click. And then the smooth tool I'm gonna probably use as I'm attempting the goal of this assignment called that's by the name Weight Shift. This one, the twirl clockwise tool, I'm sorry, I just can't resist. This is, you can use your brush size slider here to change the brush size. Whoa, I made it huge. Or you can use your bracket keys just like with most brushes in Photoshop. But yeah, as I said, I can't resist. Brace yourselves. You just click and hold it, and I know that looks really sadistic, but that's what the twirl tool does. But I'll just reconstruct, restore all. There we go. Okay, so that's the twirl clockwise tool. Then we have the pucker and the bloat here. Those are the tools that you can use for changing someone's weight, making someone lose some pounds, making someone gain some pounds. And then we have the push left tool that could come in handy for that. The freeze mask tool, if there are areas that you don't want to accidentally move or you don't want to accidentally manipulate or liquefy, you can use the freeze mask, which is just like painting your mask, like in quick mask mode. If I don't want to mess with the books back there, I can paint the mask over that. And then if I go too far, there's the thaw mask tool to erase. If you painted too much somewhere, then you go and you thaw, right? You can erase. And it doesn't, I don't think you can change the softness of the brush. It's just whatever the default is. And we'll get to this one here, which is the face tool. And hand tool just lets you move around if you're zoomed in, and zoom tool, you can use it to zoom in, and then hand tool to move around. But I never like to use hand tool by clicking on it. I always use space bar. Always gets me into the hand tool. Okay, so I've got this part masked. There are some other options in the menu on the right for masking. If you look in the mask options, you can open the mask options up, and you can just click none to remove the mask. You can click mask all. You can click invert all. See what invert all does? It switches your masking. Now it's swapped it so everything is masked except for the book shelf now, but I can invert again to go back to the way it was, or I can click mask all, and then I can just use the thaw mask to thaw out the area that I want to work on, or I could just click none and make it all go away. Okay, so let's start with these brush options here. I mentioned about the size slider. You can also experiment with the density, the slider, the pressure, and the rate to, so that you have maybe a less sudden effect or a more gradual effect by making adjustments to these other sliders. But I'll just leave those the way they are. And I'm going to try pucker to make this guy lose some weight. Give him a little digital diet. So I'm just going to adjust the size of my brush, and with pucker you could just kind of click and hold in one place, or you can kind of click and drag and sort of pull, but mainly I'm just kind of clicking and holding and applying suction, and see how I can just like vacuum that love handle away, just clicking and holding, pulling that in. He's not gonna get the six-pack, but he's gonna definitely lose some pounds. And as you're using these tools, you can kind of end up distorting or softening the pixels to look kind of like they lost resolution, or they look blurred or distorted. So if that happens, let's zoom in here. Like over here, the pixels look a little low res, kind of distorted and soft. The smooth tool might help that. So here's the smooth tool. Let's see if the smooth tool kind of fixes that edge. So I'm just kind of painting along that edge without reverting it, but just kind of smoothing that edge to make it look sharper. That worked nicely. What else was a tool that we could try? There was push left tool. Let's see what that does if we click with it. Oh, that's push left. I'm gonna undo that though. So that's good. Maybe I'll reconstruct his belly button just a little bit. I think I smashed it too much. Give it a little perk there. Okay, so he looks much better. Then I'm gonna move on to the lovely lady, and because her face is included, we could use this face tool for her. But maybe what I want to start with is the bloat tool. So I want to think of places to bloat on the lovely lady. So maybe I'll make it smaller to get into the details on the face, the tool smaller with my bracket keys, and then I can kind of just like click, and this is how they make the actors dramatically gain weight, perhaps, or well, they give them a fat suit too, but some of it can be digitally done. They definitely do this kind of stuff to celebrities in the tabloids when they want to make them look bad. And just clicking in certain places on the arms, you can kind of pull out to give her some bloated arms. Just clicking and holding, or kind of dragging a little bit. But if you kind of do too much at a time, it can soften the pixels like this. So again, then you can take your smooth tool and clean some stuff up. Make it look more natural again. And then go back and try again with the bloat tool. Maybe go in little areas here. Make your tool even smaller. Bloat the fingers. Just clicking, not really dragging too much. But you could experiment with increasing the density, see if that helps make more of a dramatic effect. The pressure, no, actually pressure is stuck. The rate can be increased. So pressure doesn't work for this tool. But she's already looking like she's put on some pounds. That's the goal. Just let them put on some pounds. And maybe make a bigger brush for bulges on the thighs, knee bulges, bigger legs. Bigger shoulders. You could try masking the background, or it doesn't really matter because it could be blowing in the wind a little bit. Let's see if I can round out the shoulder a little bit. And don't forget the important parts. And then let's see. So then the face tool, let's try the face tool. So if you click on the face tool, then let's zoom into the face. I'm going to just use Command plus to zoom in now. And then notice when I hover over the different features of the face, I have these little control points I can change. So here I can actually stretch the periphery of the face. I can make the face wider. I can adjust the position of the chin. I can make her even look bigger face. I can alter the eyes. So there's a diamond here I can drag on to open the eyes more, or I can stretch the eyes wider or taller, or I can make the eyes get smaller. But I guess people tend to use this to open the eyes more and make them look accentuated, bigger. Then the nose can be changed. The position looks like a little chipmunk, or I can widen the nose. The mouth can be altered. You can make her smile more by dragging up along these curved lines, or I can widen her mouth that way by dragging out or in to narrow her mouth, or I can adjust the lower lip downwards more or upwards. That's kind of bulging the lower lip out bigger. And then all of these controls that I'm doing here with the little controls on the face can be adjusted numerically here in the menu on the right. So notice eye size, I have one that's at 44, so I could get the other one to match and just plug in 44 there and press return. So then they match. So that's just, it's just helpful to then look at the numbers, and if you want, you can make things match. You can adjust any of these sliders, see nose height by the slider and or the number here. I got something in chat. The smile is killing me, Mav says. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Okay, so that's what you can do with the face tool and face aware liquify menu here. You can explore, but I'm going to close that up because we don't want to look at too many controls at a time if we don't need to. So far in our menu, now we kind of know an overview of the brush tool options, face aware liquify. Let's see, mesh options. Let's look at load mesh. I think I'm not gonna do too much with the mesh, but if we look at down, so we know about masking now here, the mask options, and now let's take a look at the view options. So I'm going to zoom out here. So after you've done some work here, you might want to take a look at the view options. If you check show mesh, then you can kind of see how, you know, you've pulled and tugged on the image, and that's what the mesh is, just showing like where suction kind of took place, where bulging took place. So it's helpful to see the mesh that way there. There's also this section here where you can click show backdrop and turn that on, so you can see kind of how much progress you made. It gives you a ghosting effect, so you can see, oh, there's where his love handle was, and you can increase the opacity to see before and then decrease the opacity down to see after, before and after. So that's kind of fun. You can use the show backdrop option like that. Okay, so I guess if you had some other mesh that you can load, then you can apply a different mesh to this, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to uncheck show backdrop, and I'm just going to click OK, and it's done. So I'm just going to go ahead and say file and save, or save, let's just do save as, and make this a PDF. So I'm going to put it where I'm going to change this to Photoshop PDF, and then I'm going to put this in my exercise 6 in my finished files. Save. Settings. Okay, so I'm just going to say OK to that message, and press quality is fine, save PDF, and then it's done. So then we can just close this, and you could save it or not. I'm just not going to save it. And then the next one after weight shift is the one called minus green, where you can do some color correction with the color balance adjustment. So I'm just going to go file open or command O and choose from my 12 images minus green, and then we say open. And so this image, it's an image that I took when I was visiting some relatives in Egypt. That's my brother holding a baby of my cousin. And this image has a green color cast all over it. So we're gonna correct that. So we can correct that by going to Image, Adjustments, and choosing Color Balance, but you've seen me do that before a million times. So you could use the Color Balance option this way with the floating panel. That's a, is this a destructive? Would this be destructive or non-destructive? This is just a quiz question. If I start changing the pixels now like this with this menu, am I doing this destructively or non-destructively? Let's see in chat if we have the right answer. D, I'm guessing that D is for destructive, right, Mav? Yes. Yes, and you are absolutely correct. So yes, and you can do this destructively, or I'm going to cancel and then do this non-destructively, so we can practice doing it non-destructively too. So color balance is one of those adjustments that you can find with that little button. I'm going to call it the pizza button. It looks like a half-eaten pizza, and I guess I'm hungry for pizza tonight. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to choose color balance. And what that does is it lets me do the adjustment on a separate layer, not directly on the pixels of the image. So it puts the adjustment on an adjustment layer. And then it will automatically open up the properties panel with the same controls that we find in the floating panel when we do the destructive adjustment. So within properties, we can control the midtones, and we can switch to shadows and highlights here. But let's start with midtones. So mine is green. The opposite of green is, can you see on color, in the color balance sliders, you see that this is working on the principle that of light color theory, not of painting color theory. Since we're working with an image that's made up of nothing but lights, what we're doing is we're seeing the opposite colors, the colors that are opposite each other. The opposite of red is cyan, the opposite of green is magenta, the opposite of blue is yellow. These are complements, but only when it comes to light, color as light. So when we increase the magenta in an image, we're neutralizing the green. We're actually minusing the green when we add magenta. So it's giving me the amount that I'm subtracting of green here as I'm increasing magenta. So on the midtones, I'm increasing magenta, and that should neutralize the green, because just like with painting, when you add a complement to a color, when you add the opposite color to a color, you neutralize. You turn it into a shade of gray. In this case, we're just neutralizing, making the wall look white instead of green in this case. So and that should also balance out the skin tone too, so we don't see a green haze over the skin tone. So we go to shadows and crank up the magenta, but in shadows, if you crank up the magenta too high, everything gets too dark. So just kind of use your eye for judgment. Then in highlights, crank up the magenta. That's minusing the green, but don't go too far, because then things get all turned into magenta. We just want to, but actually you can go up pretty high and it still looks pretty good on this image with cranking up the magenta, minusing the green. Let me just go back to midtones, maybe do a little more. And so that neutralizes the green. It takes down the green in the image and cleans it up, and then the skin tone looks more natural. So that's all going on this layer, so it's not actually affecting the pixels of the image themselves. You can click the eyeball to turn the layer off, and then you see before, and turn the eyeball on the layer, turn it on again, and that's the adjustment layer affecting the image. So it's pretty neat. You can always throw the adjustment layer away, and nothing ever affected the pixels of the image. Whereas when you work destructively, you're kind of degrading the image in a way, and the pixels just never go back to their original state. I'm gonna go ahead and just save as, and save it as a PDF, Photoshop PDF, and put it in exercise 6 in my finished files. Save, okay, and save PDF. You can just leave all the defaults, and then it's saving. It's 99% saved. It'll take a little longer to save an image with an adjustment layer as opposed to a direct destructive adjustment. So you can do whatever you prefer. Okay, moving on. Dark levels. This is another image picture I took in Egypt that was in a dark alley when I was on a bus and just trying to capture stuff, and just got this really dark image in a kind of ghetto area, and it looks like just black, but we're gonna bring out some details and decipher what is there. So I'm gonna open that, and the 12 images, it's called dark levels. So you'll be amazed when you take an image that is dark, there's still a lot of information in the image that can be brought out. This is how in those shows where they go to a digital artist and they find ghosts in the image. This is kind of like that. So so how do we bring this out? We can do this destructively, like image adjustments, levels, the old-fashioned way, and use this levels control and use the input levels. But you've seen me do this a million times, so I'm gonna do it non-destructively. I think I should turn on the light, please. It's getting dark in here. Okay, so non-destructively, you can use the little, I like to call it the pizza button, but I should call it the adjustment layer button, and find levels here. Or you could also bring up an adjustment layer by going to the adjustments panel, which should be tabbed behind the properties panel. And these panels, if for some reason you don't see them out, where do you go to find a panel that's missing of the drop downs here? All the panels are located under which drop down in alphabetical order? Window. That's right. That's right. So if ever you know the name of a panel but you don't see it in your workspace, you can always find it in alphabetical order, window, and I can find adjustments, and it pops up. So if it's always good, especially if you want to get Adobe certified, to start to memorize the icons for things. So in the adjustments panel, you can use the icons as a button to bring up any one of the adjustment layers. So this one is levels, and also when you hover over each of these, it'll tell you in the top left corner, the name as well. But it's kind of fun to just get acclimated with these different types of adjustments by their icons too. So there's the levels icon. So another way to apply an adjustment layer is from the adjustments panel, and you just click the button with the icon, and I've just added the levels adjustment layer. And then notice that the majority of the image information is over here on the left side where in the shadows. So this here is this would be the input levels, this would be the output levels. Let's see if I can stretch this out it's not labeled in the properties panel like it is in our destructive editing panel that's floating, but that's okay. This is the input levels, this is the output levels, just like in the other panel. And all the information is here. So to bring out the information in the image, we drag the sliders, like the mid-tone sliders, into the histogram area where there's a lot of information. So all the information's in the shadows, so we drag everything over there. And the highlights you can drag in there, but then it gets, the image pixels get really degraded looking when if you crank it up too much. Looks really noisy, right, like that. So you just kind of adjust it to your eye so it still maintains quality, but you see a lot more going on. You see some satellites, you see some buildings, you see a shadow on the side of the house, some laundry stuff going on. So it's not that exciting, but there's a lot of information in there that comes out in the image. Okay, so that's it. So then you just go File, and then you go Save As. Save on your computer, save it to your finished files if you're storing them together in one place. I find that to be helpful. And then I choose Photoshop PDF, and you don't have to name these yet because remember, we're just saving these as PDFs so we can combine them in the end as one PDF, and then you can name it your last name, first initial, EX for exercise 6, your last exercise. And I'm just going to save it there. Okay to that message, save PDF, and when it's done saving, I'll just close this. Close, and I'm not going to save this one. Okay, what's next? I know we're to the point where it's the end of the scheduled class, but as always, I'm just going to go to 9. You guys are free to leave, and you can watch the rest of the lesson on your own time if you want, on video. Or you can stay here for the live lesson and just, have it all watched and you're ready to go. Okay, so next, after dark levels, I'm just going to choose this one, saturate this. Some of these are so quick to do that the saving process takes longer than doing the task. So saturate this. Command O to open. I'm going to find 12 images. And at 7:45, we'll take a 10-minute break. Saturate this. So this was a picture when I was a tourist in Egypt of the back of the Sphinx. I guess I was so excited I took a picture of the back of the Sphinx before I got there. And this image, I just wanted you to experience what it is to crank up saturation. So you can do this destructively or non-destructively. You can go to Image, Adjustments, and bring up Hue Saturation. And from the Hue Saturation floating panel, the destructive method, you'll be able to crank up the saturation with master selected, so you'll crank up the saturation of all the pixels, all the different colors together, or you could choose to just saturate the reds or the yellows or the greens, etc. Just saturate certain colors. But if I just have it on master, then the saturation slider I can just crank up and all the colors are just saturating together. Whoa. So you could do that, or you can choose just let's say just reds, and then I increase just the reds, so then the reds pop. All the reds get really saturated. So however you want to do it, and then you just click OK and it's done. But again, this is one that you can choose as an adjustment layer as well. If you go to Hue Saturation here, or from Adjustments, and you choose the one that is saturation, hue saturation is this icon, and you can click and add that, and this is what it looks like in properties. Very similar. You can choose the individual colors or leave it on master and drag up the saturation with the slider there. But I'm not gonna do it this way, so I'm gonna throw out the adjustment layer because I already did it destructively. So I'm just gonna go ahead and file and save as, save Photoshop PDF. I'm gonna put it in my finished files. Save as a Photoshop PDF. Okay, save PDF. It's saving and I'm closing it now. Okay. Heal moles. Alright, so here we get to start working with the healing tools more. So nothing wrong with moles, but this is the technique that's used in photo touch-ups when people want to hide their blemishes. So let's try it. So you'll be ready to do photography for weddings, yearbook, if you want to. There are always jobs in doing this type of photography. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and open the one that's called Heal Moles. Open. Okay, so she's got a lot of beautiful moles, and we're gonna just find different ways of taking them out with the spot healing brush, patch tool works. Not so much content aware, and I can show you why. But let's start with the spot healing brush tool. So with the spot healing brush tool, look what it does. Look at that. It makes things disappear when you paint over them, as the animation shows. And you want to check out the settings in the control panel. So it's on normal mode, so that it's gonna be analyzing the colors, pixel texture and color around what you're painting over, around the blemish or the mole that you're painting on top of. And then it's set to fill with content aware. But you could try these other options like proximity match. Create texture, probably not so much. Probably don't want to do that. Content aware is probably a good choice to leave it on. But you can experiment with trying different options. So create texture. Proximity match, there's a diffusion option you can experiment with. But I'm just going to go ahead and start with content aware. And so you can change the size of the brush to be smaller or larger, and then just paint from one side to the other, and it just takes it out. But we can try with, let's see, proximity match and see the difference. I kind of didn't quite like that one because it added a little something to the texture. But I'm going to undo that and see if I adjust the diffusion differently. Maybe let's do less diffusion and see what happens. Undo that, or crank the diffusion up and see if that helps. I think I don't quite like that one because it's adding little glitches in there. So I think content aware is the winner on this. And wait, let's see create texture. Let's see what it does. Oh, no, it's like finding texture like in the hair and putting it on the face, which is not what we want. Undo that. Content aware is the winner. So you can just draw across blemishes and it wipes them out. It just analyzes the texture and the colors in the surrounding area and paints right over the blemish or the mole. And it's different than clone. It's a little smarter than clone. There's also another way to do it where you have a little more control, which is with the healing brush tool. You can choose, instead of the spot healing brush tool, just analyzes the surrounding area and uses that, the content aware. But the healing brush tool allows you to option click to choose the texture that you want to put on top of something. So let's see these freckles. If with the healing brush tool, I can hold option and click in a clear area, and now I've set this part to be what I paint over. See, as I'm painting, the little plus is trailing. Where the plus is trailing, it's actually pulling the texture from that area. So let's see if I go option click down here and then I paint up here. So you might get better results doing that. And it's different than the way clone works, as I was saying. With clone stamp tool, you option click somewhere. Like if I option click over here and then I paint over here, it's pulling the exact same pixels. So it's pulling the color, the darkness of and everything about the pixels and painting on top of this area. But that's not what we want. I'm going to undo that. The difference, let's try with healing brush tool. Let's say I option click with the healing brush tool in the same location and then I paint over here. See how it's pulling the texture, but it's not pulling the darkness. So it works differently. But I'm going to go here, option click, and then paint. Maybe not here. I'm going to undo that. There's also a brush that you could use that's called, let's see, it's like the Reconstruct brush that that was in the Liquify tool, is the history brush. So let's say I do something that I don't like, then I can take the history brush and paint over it to bring back that area the way it was, to restore it. I want to show you another tool here among the healing tools, the patch tool. So another method you could use is using the patch tool. So with the patch tool, you can draw a circle around a blemish like that, and then you can go inside of you draw marching ants around the blemish with the patch tool. Then you go inside of the marching ants and you click and drag out and go on top of some clear area that you want to replace the inside of that marching ants with, and release. And now you can click outside to deselect. So that's another way, is to draw circles around the blemishes and drag out to clear space areas. Even if you drag in a very light place, it looks like it's going to put a light patch there, but when I release, it still matches the lighting and the darkness of that part of the image. Let me just draw around these freckles and then drag out to a clear area. So it's kind of matching the colors, the hues and the brightness in that area of the image. So just drawing, you can draw circles around the freckles and then drag to a clear area on her face, and it just nicely replaces that. Dragging out. So this is another nice way to clean up blemishes, is with the patch tool. And I was telling you that content aware wasn't going to work so well. wait, which one was it? Yeah, the content aware move tool is kind of like the patch tool, but it's more like if I wanted to move a blemish somewhere else. Let me see. Let me bring back more of a pronounced blemish with my history brush. I think she had something like right there. Okay, so that's a big one. So with the content aware move tool, you can draw around a blemish just like with the patch tool, and then you can drag it out and put it somewhere else. And then you can even rotate it. And then you just click the check mark to apply that. Oh wow, that's weird. Did I scale that? Let me undo that. Let's try that again. See, drag it out. And then check mark. Oh, that's interesting that it shrunk it. I've never seen that happen before. It takes it from from where it was, and then it puts it somewhere else, but that's weird that it shrunk it. Transform on drop. Maybe if I uncheck that. Let me just undo that and try different options. So let's see. If I uncheck here, let me just draw around it again. Drop it out. And that's interesting. Oh, it's working just like the patch tool now. It's working, it's kind of doing something strange. Oh, maybe because color is at 0. Let's see if we bring color up to 10. Let's see what happens now. So maybe it will work just like the patch tool, but let's just try this again. And then click outside. So that time it was, because I cranked color up, that allowed me to move the blemish, but that's not really what we want to do for this. Let me use the history brush and bring back this one. Let's try it with this one. Okay, so if I want to move a blemish, move or mole, make a beauty mark or something down here. I have it on mode is set to move. There's also extend structure. Let's bring structure up to 7, colors up to 10, and then I draw around it, and then I drag it and put it somewhere else, and then click outside. And so that's what content aware move tool can do. Pretty cool, huh? Oops. But that's not really what we're supposed to do here for this one. It made kind of a blurry look up there, so I'm just going to take my history brush and unblur it and find a better tool. And there's a little beauty mark. I can unblur that, but you could see that when I was on that tool and I brought the structure down and the color was set to 0, it actually just kind of it worked like the patch tool then, but it gives you that other option. So patch tool, I drop the patch around there, drag it out to clear space, release, and it clears that area. Patch, drag it out. Let's see what happens if I put it in this really bright area. With that, since that's so textural, it added the texture there. So I don't like that. So I'm going to put it on a less textured area. Or I could go back to spot healing brush and paint through along the, kind of in the direction across the blemishes, and that's a quick way to clean things up fast. Oops. All right, I think she's pretty much cleared of blemishes.